back and forward / or beg for food, while others have crossed the border in Nigeria. 49. A similar situation is occurring in Chad as desperate Chadians fled into southern Libya. Sudan and Burkina Faso were in a surveyed insecure situation. 49. On the 6th of June, 2010, growing famine in the Niger drove thousands of refugees into the Nigerian provinces of Kano and Katsina states. About 7 million were facing a food shortage crisis in Niger. 110. On the 7th of June, the Malian government's early warning system released an estimate that 258,000 people were suffering from malnutrition in the towns of Gao and Kidal in April. Low and erratic rainfall in 2009 had occurred in Timbuktu, Kidal, and Gao, leading to a heavy regional drought. 111. Hundreds of refugees moved to Gao from Burkina Faso and Niger, but were now too weak with starvation to leave Mali. The UN and Mali's government asked the developed nations for food aid and financial help in the face of the growing humanitarian crisis. 111. The amount taken in Nigeria's harvest was down by 65,000 tons, whilst Niger had virtually nothing to take from the harvest. On the 8th of June, 2010, France Food Aid and the European Union pledged an additional $28 million to help millions of victims in the Niger, the Chad, Burkina Faso, and northern Nigeria. 112. The charity Save the Children Center team to Orgi in Niger, 850 kilometers northeast from the capital Niamey, to set up an aid center on the 8th 113, and reported back on the 9th that 350,000 children faced severe malnutrition. 114. On the 9th of June, various groups of hydrologists, geologists and scientists in the Sahara Desert used magnetic imaging technology when looking for aquifer sites for drilling water wells in eastern Chad. Both northern Mali, southern Libya, southern Algeria, eastern Chad were being examined in part of an ongoing project to find viable drilling as the region's nations try to find new water sources to keep up with their growing demand. In recent years, roughly 300,000 refugees have arrived from both the war-torn Sudan and ailing Central African Republic, thus straining the already limited water supplies. Both Algeria, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, Morocco, Mozambique, Niger have shown a major interest in the further development of this resource-led local industry. 115, 116, 117. On the 11th of June, 2010, the UN's World Food Organization, Oxfam and MSF all warned of an impending famine in Mali, Mauritania, Burkina Faso, Niger and northern Nigeria. Niger's Diffa region was of the most concern to the efforts at hand. 118. By the 13th of June, 2010, roughly 30% of crops failed in some of Niger's provinces. 119. A new heat wave hit Niger on the 21st of June, causing an increased area of drought in that country as well. Niger's crops failed and famine occurred. About 350,000 faced starvation and 1,200,000 were at risk of famine according to the Niger's government. 120, while the UN said roughly 2 million Chadians, 7,000,000 Nigerians and 1,000,000 other people of the Sahel region faced starvation and 200,000 Nigerian children were malnourished. 120. In overheated Chad, the temperature reached 47.6 degrees Celsius, 117.7 degrees Fahrenheit, on the 22nd of June in Fialajo, breaking a record set in 1961 at the same location. Niger tied its highest temperature record set in 1998, on also the 22nd of June. at 47.1 degrees in Bilma. That record was broken the next day, on the 23rd of June, when Bilma hit 48.2 degrees Celsius, 118.8 degrees Fahrenheit. The hottest temperature recorded in Sudan was reached on the 22nd of June, at 49.7 degrees Celsius, 121.3 degrees Fahrenheit, in Dongola, breaking a record set in 1987. Sudan's record temperature was matched on the 23rd 2.3. On the 23rd of June, the UN, WFP and various humanitarian agencies requested $190,700,000 million to enable them respond to the unfolding famine in Niger. The UN estimates that just under 50% of country's 7,100,000 people risked starving to death. 122. On the 24th of June, the government of Niger admitted that it was suffering from a major famine and said aid workers and NGOs were now welcome. 123. The government of the Ivory Coast had reported to various NGOs that it was struggling to control desertification and imminent drought conditions in parts of its northern savanna lands. 123. Oxfam launch a £7 million emergency appeal to try to help more than 800,000 of the most vulnerable people in Chad, Niger and Mali. 121. 122. The 26th of June saw 1,600,000 Chadians facing food insecurity in the Bur El Ghazal region, Batha region, Gara region, Hadjalamis region, Lac region and the Kanem region. About 604,000 people were benefiting from its assistance, as a total 60% of families became victims of the famine in varying degrees according to the UN's World Food Programme, WFP. Chad appealed to donors for increased contribution to the international famine relief operation in Chad that received $42,100,000 of a pledged total of $65,000,000 to enable it continue all its relief work and charitable activities until the end of the year 2010. 124. Cameroon also suffered from heavy desertification in the savanna regions of South Region, Center Region, West Region, Northwest Region and Far North Region. 123. 125. July. This map shows the nations hit by the 2010 Sahel African famine. Orange-tinted nations were in immediate risk of or had a famine according to the UN/ICRC or aid organizations like CAFOD. Yellow-tinted nations had heavy sandstorm, food shortages or a drought, but did not go as far as to have an actual famine itself. July saw sporadic and small-scale food riots in Sudan's Blue Nile, Janub Darfur, South Kordofan and North Kordofan departments. 126. The Muslim Hands charity set up an appeal and sent aid to Niger and Mali in July. It was worst Niger famine since 1984, with 3,500,000 people starving. 127. On the 6th of July, the Methodist Relief and Development Fund, MRDF, aid experts say that more than 1,500,000 Nigerians were at risk of famine due to a month-long heat wave that was hovering over Niger, Mali, Mauritania and Morocco. A fund of about £20,000 was distributed to the crisis-hit countries of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso and Mauritania. 128. The heat wave that left Morocco for the Iberian Peninsula on the 11th of July was attributed to the regional hot air currents that depart from the Sahara Desert in northern Africa at about 1,000 meters in altitude. This facilitated a movement in the hot air towards the Balkans and the Ukraine via the Straits of Gibraltar, Spain and Italy. 129. Unusually hot weather was also reported in parts of Algeria on 11 July. 129. On the 12th of July, 2010, a local goat farmer was killed and his small flock stolen by Chadian refugees in the South Darfur region of the Sudan. The UN's WFP body estimated that 2,500,000 were at risk of a famine breaking out in the part of Niger. 130. On the 13th of July, the USAID-funded Famine Early Warning Systems Network, FuseNet, and the UN warned of a food supply shortage in northern Sudan, with increasing food insecurity focused on the war-torn Darfur region and of the neighboring areas. 131. The deteriorating security situation in the conflict zone was predicted to reduce both productivity and people's access to local agricultural as well as disrupting the seasonal livestock migration. USAID/OFTA provided $133,200,000 to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, to help remedy the crisis in the three Darfur states. 131. Concerns were also raised about the situation in Chad. 131. 3 years of famine and then the recent sandstorms devastated Niger on the 14th of July. Diarrhea, starvation, gastroenteritis, malnutrition and respiratory diseases kill and sicken many children. The new military junta appealed for international food aid and has taken serious steps to call overseas help since coming to office in February 2010. 132. Sudan witnessed minor food rioting in southern Kordofan, Blue Nile, and Abyei as profiteering locals and merchants and Ugandan exporters took advantage of the shortages in order to heavily mark up their selling prices. 133. 15 July saw more border conflicts between the Nuer and the Dinka, further hindering aid workers in southern Sudan. 134. On 17 July, Mohamed Bivagi, the director of Western and Central Africa Division of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, called for more international help for the people of the Sahel, who had a 10,000 tons of cereals and 20,000 tons of fodder deficit. He also condemned the world for not doing enough to help the Sahel, but stopped short of Kemenaid's idea of pumping water from the Zaire River into Lake Chad to invigorate its water supply and stop any further shrinkage. On the 24th of July, the British Red Cross flew its logistics teams Bristol Airport to Niger to help the army and local officials with transportation. The relief effort has already been made possible by the response to the Red Cross's West Africa Crisis Appeal, which aims to raise £500,000. According to UN agencies, 200,000 children need treatment for malnutrition in Niger alone, as Oxfam put out an £7 million appeal to cover both Chad and Niger. 8. 120. 135. France sent unspecified food and cash aid to Mali on 25 July. 80. On the 26th of July the heat reached near record levels over Chad and Niger, 136, and about 20 had reportedly died in northern Niger of dehydration on 27 July. 27 July also saw a critical situation occurring in northern Mali and Chad. About 8,000,000 Nigerians, 1,600,000 Chadians and 500,000 Malians were on the verge of a major food shortage, as the Nigerian journalist Tidy Anikas said that by tackling the consequences rather than the causes would be a better form of long-term help for the region. 137. On the 31st of July, leading economists predicted that food prices, especially wheat, would rise in Chad as Russia ends exports due to a domestic drought destroying their wheat and barley harvests. August. On the 1st of August, Gadebji, Niger suffered 35 degrees Celsius heat and drought. 138. On the 1st of August, just under 12 million people in Niger, approximately 80% of the nation's entire population, faced a food supply crisis and possibly even famine conditions. 138. The Tillabéri region is 30 kilometers from the capital, Niamey, on the road to the Saharan town of Timbuktu. 138. Unusually severe rainfall destroyed and then rotted the farmers' crops. 138. Basic foodstuffs like maize, millet and sorghum were running out in West Africa's Sahel. Both Chad and northern Nigeria have a similar, but less severe problem. 8. 120, 135, 138. On the 3rd of August, Burkina Faso was hit by a drought, as 4,500,000 Burkinans and 6,700,000 Nigerians faced starvation. 139. Human Rights Watch, HRW, said the Sudanese new Dinka war was hampering relief efforts and damaging agricultural output in parts of South Sudan. 134. 10 August saw an Al Jazeera reporter say that 7,500,000 Nigerians were at risk of famine and 15 million could face a famine across the Sahel. 140. An estimated 8 million people faced famine conditions in Niger on the 11th of August. Senegal and Gambia sent food aid to the Niger. 141. On the 12th of August, Gianluca Ferreira, Deputy Director for the UN's World Food Programme in the Niger, said malnutrition and crop failures were at a record levels in 2010. Food shortages are affecting 12 million people and 400,000 children face starvation. Food prices rose by about 300% since the crisis began, and thus hardly anyone can afford to buy the remaining food. 142. 14 August saw protests across Senegal over concerns relating to the ruling party's poor governance in the face of recent floods, storms and power cuts across the country, along with the current heavy drought in Senegal's Sahel region. 143. 15 August had aid workers and their organizations warn of an imminent nationwide famine in Niger. 143. On the 20th of August, floods which were the worst for 80 years hit the Sahel region. The UN warned that Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso, Cameroon and northern Nigeria are also in the grip of the worst regional food crisis since 2006. In Savannah-Kano, Nigeria, over 2,000 families were displaced by floods, and in the nearby Jigawa region, an entire village was evacuated due to heavy flooding. In Mauritania, a flood damaged bridges and many homes in the mountain town of Oyan. Heavy flooding was occurring around parts of Lake Chad. 69. Most international aid agencies withdraw workers due to the regional kidnapping crisis. Niger's government spokesman Mohamed Lawali Danda told the BBC that the pullout came as a surprise since no one had told his government Niger was on the list of dangerous kidnapper-infested pariah states, along with Chad, Darfur and Sudan. Mauritania and Mali were not on the list of dangerous nations, despite several al-Qaeda-led kidnappings during 2009. 69. The UN warned of mass starvation in Niger and Chad, and Oxfam said people in the region were surviving on leaves and berries picked in the wild. 8 million were said to be near starvation by both organizations. 69. The UN estimated that up to 7,800,000 Nigerians were affected by heavy food shortages. KFOD set up a £100,000 aid program on 21 August. 144. 25 August had a French aid worker kidnapped in Chad. 66. The kidnapping of foreigners along the Chad-Darfur border became more frequent in 2009. A French NGO worker was taken and then murdered on 29 October 2009. 67. and an unidentified Red Cross worker was captured on the 10th of November 2009. 68. Many NGOs and charities had started to restrict the areas covered by their aid work in Niger, Chad and Sudan, due to the ever-present risk of bandits and